Welcome to my channel. My name is Dale Hawthorne, and hey, I've got a bunch of book recommendations for you. The books I'm going to be recommending, about 9 of them. There could be more if you are taking tabs, but you can get a good understanding of ancient history just from reading. And these are going to be concentrating on histories outside the classical world. I may do something eventually and then, but there's some that I'm rereading, plan to reread and get some more information on some of them. So there may be another video, probably not for another year, maybe, but on classical histories. But my personal background, ancient history, comes from about almost 3.5 years Miami University classes from Dr. Edwin Yamauchi, who then was considered one of the leading experts on ancient history, and I was taking classes which were both graduate and undergraduate. That was during my undergraduate education, and so that's given me a pretty good background in ancient history. I could have gone on for a master's or a PhD if I'd wanted to, but I really didn't see that as being part of the mission of my life. But everything that I learned in those courses and at that time, I still treasure. I still find very useful for my own understanding. Didn't come in all that useful as I was developing software for over 30 years. But hey, you do what you can, and often these things which you pursue out of love can become great hobbies and great second acts. So, please click like and subscribe also as well. I'd appreciate that. That may be able to get some more views on some of the videos which other people find helpful and interesting. So the texts I'm going to be giving you, there are going to be a couple of more recent texts here, but some of them are going to be kind of older. They You can find things in older texts which they may show significant views of the evidence of transmission of things which were discovered, and modern texts sometimes gloss over them, or they may find that they've got different theories, so they don't include them. So may find some of these to be inexpensive books on Kindle, Amazon, because they're being reprinted. Because they're still useful. You might find them at used bookstores. And the thing is, modern discoveries, when it comes to ancient history, really overturn very little as far as the real evidence that people put together. They supplement and they revise rather than revolutionary rewrites. If you are watching any of the things on some of the channels about this rewrites history, well, it may supplement, it may revise some theories of that time, it may overturn some theories, but pretty much ancient history is something which keeps on growing and growing and growing in our knowledge, which is wonderful because there is so. If we consider the amount of evidence that comes from the ancient times, we do have a lot of evidence which perished, works which perished. From everything I know, from when Aristotle would mention the great works of his time, there are only a couple there that I'd want to read. We do know a lot of the summaries of some of the lost plays, for example, of Sophocles. But we got whole plays and other words and other sources. So I think as far as the classical world, we actually do have in what's been preserved, and what's been preserved as far as biblical background too, we do have the best of the best from those times. But um, what I'm going to go to right now is primarily non-classical histories. Because for me, because my background is also ancient history and classics, and there's a lot more stuff that I want to read and catch up on. I want to do, do that in future videos if then. So, first thing, prehistory. Um, Prehistory, the dawn of everything. I read this recently, David Graeber or David Wengrow. There are some theories that they have, which I've and some sources I have, I kind of shake my head at, but it is well done. And one of the things that we do need to understand, there is something called the myth of the noble savage, which is a plank supporting modern ideologies, and the history does not bear that out. It does not bear out that there was a golden age, that there's wonderful savages back then, such as you may see the idealization in the movie Dances with Wolves and like that for um, the the Sioux Indians and so on. So when I say that, I'm saying that there were people like us. They had wars, they had brutality. They weren't a bunch of people running around la 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 in a like a in an idealized past. So, and there's another book which I do know of, which I haven't ordered yet, but War Before Civilization, and um, when you find a prehistorical or a pre-civilized group of people, often the war is more brutal. As a matter of fact, some of the things I've read on Roman conquest recently do tend to think that when the Romans would conquer an area, sure, there would be people that would die, people that would be enslaved, but to some extent, they did bring real order to a number of these societies, which were smaller societies, which were in constant conflict and constantly killing each other. So it's not to say that everything they did was right or wrong. It's just simply to make an observation on that time, which we often don't realize at our time. So, noble savage dying out. So, first civilization. Samuel Noah Kramer is still an extraordinary authority on this. I read this years ago. I do have it um, on my list. There's another one books by on Sumerian mythology, which I want to go on. But there are um, like three basic civilizations in the early time of history from about 4000, 3000 BC. The Sumerians, the Harappa culture, and the Egyptians. The Egyptians would have, ancient Egypt would have started to organize and become one nation and be able to put together the monuments that time. But as far as the Sumerians go, yeah, Samuel Noah Kramer. There are more recent books with more recent information, but Kramer is a good place to start with. And if you're building up a library, um, have at it. Get Kramer and get some more recent works too. So the next one, Hittites. Hittites, the people who lived in modern Turkey. They were mentioned in the Bible, and Christian apologists often make much of the fact that a lot of people think the Hittites really didn't exist until they were discovered in archaeology central Turkey now. Hattushas was their city, and they had some um, leaders with names like Tudalia, Shupaliliumus, and yeah, they're not that easy to pronounce, but yeah, the Hittites, O.R. Gurney, um, still around, still worth reading. Again, there are more recent works on them, but if you want to get an indication of where the Hittites were, if you can find this at a used bookstore on Kindle or something like that, Gurney is a good place to start. The book has been around. Let's see, this was first published 52. The reprint that I have is from 1976. So it's not something you'll find from the 1800s, pre-archaeological. It's carries on the archaeological finds of the time. There have been some revisions in Hittite history since then, but it is a decent book to get your orientation to the Hittites. Okay, next one. Next one. Egyptians. Yeah, Eternal Egypt. Pierre Monte. I got this at a used bookstore, and there are many more books on ancient Egypt by archaeologists. Flinders Petrie has a number of the early discoveries, and James Henry Breasted uh, is another one of the early authorities, and you'll find more recent authorities on ancient Egypt since then. So um, you could probably fill up a shelf easily by the books on ancient Egypt. But hey, if if ancient Egypt appeals to you and you want to learn more about them, go ahead. It's just the price of a book and your time, and to satisfy your curiosity. And ancient Egypt, and to one of their main rivals, Assyria. And this is HWF Sags, The Might That Was Assyria. I got this, um, ordered this Amazon used. It's not that easy to find. It's kind of expensive, but if you can find it at a Z bookstore, have at it. It's a decent book. It gives a very good understanding of the Assyrians, and it is. Let's see how recent this is. This is 84, 1984. So yeah, yeah. So if Sags the Assyrians, and there's another recent one, which I have. Eckhart Fram, Assyria: The Rise and Fall of the World's First Empire. And for an ancient history book, this is surprisingly entertaining. And I think that you'll find a lot of what he has to say. This is very recent because it comes, he wrote it after the defeat of ISIS in the Middle East, and what ISIS did to some of the monuments there, and some perhaps blessings in disguise that over uh, unearthed some other evidence of the Assyrians. So Nineveh is around, I believe it's Mosul, and you'll find a huge, pretty much unoccupied mound of Nineveh right beside Mosul in modern Iraq. So the Assyrians are a major people. We um, don't know enough of them. Unfortunately, some people's understanding of Assyria may come from that question in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where one of the knights is asked, "What is the capital of Assyria?" I don't know that, and he goes off into that pit. So, same author then. Babylonians. H.W.S. Sags, The Greatness That Was Babylon. And again, there are more recent works here. But, you're going to find that no one's going to come up with some great rewriting which says that there was no such person as Nebuchadnezzar the First or Nebuchadnezzar the Second, or any others. We pretty much know who the kings are. We pretty much have a lot of their archives and what they did, where they, and other sources on them. We're going to find perhaps some revisions, but more supplement and revisions rather than revolutionary rewrites. We're not going to find some great discovery which says, "Hey, there never was anyone or such as Nebuchadnezzar or a city such as Babylon." So we're gonna. So this is the way ancient history really goes. So, and next one, we've done prehistory, Sumerians, Hittites, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians. Yeah, history of the Persian Empire, A.T. Olmsted. And this is another one that I had as a textbook, History of the Persian Empire, A.T. Olmsted. And again, still valid. And I'm not fond of the Iranian regime, but they are making some efforts to restore some of the old Persian monuments. The city Persepolis, I believe, which Alexander the Great burned, is being restored to some extent. So Persians has great significance for the Old Testament, and so do the Assyrians, so do the Babylonians. Um, and each of these works, which I've just mentioned, also they do mention it where the Persian Empire or the Assyrians or the Babylonians, where their history intersects with the history of ancient Israel, which would be the Old Testament. So, and as I'm mentioning Israel, this is the one that I recommend right now: A Biblical History of Israel. Ian Provine, V. Phillips Long, and Tremper Long with the third. Tremper is an author who I've had a number of his commentaries. So he is also, and it's biblical history, yeah, taking the Bible seriously about the Old Testament. We have documentary history, and we also have monuments and what archaeology brings up. They're really, people who are skeptical, hyper skeptical about the Bible and ancient history are the people who pretty much dismiss it out hand. And I could give you some names here, but just it's a case where you look at the Bible on one hand, the documentary history, and you look at the archaeology, and that's the way it's done for every other ancient civilization, ancient nation. The Bible, their documentary history, their memories, the history which they've had written down in some way, plus whatever sort of archaeology, such as monuments, such as buildings, such as evidence of wars and go on, are used to one hand and the other hand. Sometimes archaeology in some places um, does tend to force a real revision of some of the things that ancient peoples may have said about themselves. May have been a case where the written history was long after the actual history. But as far as Israel, most of the Old Testament, I consider it reliable history. You can have different opinions. You can have different um, sources and authorities, archaeologists that you may follow on that. But that's my opinion. This is what I recommend. John Bright also has another history of ancient Israel. I believe there is a more recent one too. Um, but hey, this is an area which is easy to learn, easy to read, easy to figure out, and it, it's if you're someone who believes in the Bible as the Word of God, an evangelical Christian such as I am, you don't dismiss the history, but you look at it seriously, and that's that's what I that's what I do when I consider these histories, and it does supplement and inform my faith as far as salvation that was brought through in history. And as far as that goes, this is one which is still around. This is the last revision. F. Bruce, who I believe he wrote this first in the original preface is 1969. I had this back in college, and um, there I believe it was revised later on. That says that this edition was 1980, but this is the one I recommend going to first. Bruce is reliable. He's a classical scholar firsthand, and also um, very fluent understanding of the New Testament. With pretty much any book that he has written on the New Testament, New Testament history commentaries, um, until he passed away, is considered one of the leading authorities on the Book of Acts in the New Testament. So it's hard to go wrong with Bruce. There's some people have some other different opinions nowadays. One of the things which you'll find in Bruce is that he tends to be, like I am, a minimalist about how much of Paul knew of ancient philosophy and ancient literature. That Paul quotes the Old Testament over and over again with authority, but his allusions to ancient history and philosophy are seem to be things that he could have picked up easily in popular culture without having read much of them anyway. And that's the conclusion that Bruce came to. We tend to forget that Paul hung around with a lot of educated Gentiles during his ministry, so some of the references that we do see in the New Testament in his writings in the Book of Acts where he's quoting a pagan author, they're very few, and they're the kind of things that could come about easily without having really read any of those. But we do know that Paul was a very serious Old Testament scholar. So that's just an aside on that. But the whole history, he deals with other, with the New Testament, with archaeology, and with the pagan and secular sources, and the Jewish sources such as Josephus and Philo of Alexandria and so on. He's very well read, so I recommend that if you're uh, a pastor, having that on your shelf too. To look at Bruce if you're looking into some of the New Testament background. So that's all I have to say about those right now. Kind of a whirlwind tour, but hey, if you are interested in these eras, um, it's okay to build up a bookshelf. Um, my own bookshelf, because I have a lot of literature, is about 5 different shelves, and right, the biblical background I have is 4.5. So knowledge can be wonderful, and reading can help you to that, and also um, you can. I would encourage you to read, and also maybe check out some of the YouTube channels too. So, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Whirlwind tour, maybe kind of rambling in some areas, but hey, um, this is what you get when you talk to someone who's been looking at these things for 50 years. So, thank you.